think that when they formed the organization 2 years ago, the leaders of the Women's March, both the original group and the four co-chairs that are most well known now in the media, they were hoping that they would build a lasting movement. But I think that nowadays it's looking like the group is definitely going through some sort of collapse, especially in terms of their relationship with the media and with other members of the of the liberal establishment. So we're going to get into that. First, I want you guys to do me a favor. Please like the video before we go any further. Also, please subscribe to the channel if you're not yet subscribed. And if possible, because it's very difficult to know when you're going to get the notifications besides hitting the bell next to the subscribe button, please go to my BitChute and CocoScopes channels and you can subscribe to me there. So the Women's March is a topic that I covered pretty extensively back in March when there first started to be rumblings about really the character of some of the people in the movement, including especially Tamika Mallory. So back at the time, I said that Tamika Mallory is affiliated with the movement, and she has these these tendencies to work with the Farrakhan movement, the Nation of Islam. It has the potential to unravel the Women's March entirely. And at the time, I was trying to promote that idea around a number of people, especially some of these conservative people who were too busy fighting each other, over the kill stream and what do you call it, internet blood sports and everything. What's so ridiculous is that so many of those people were so busy shit talking each other that they didn't realize that basically the Women's March had all the elements for a complete self-destruct that would just embarrass the liberal movement. Here, for example, is a video that I made in March concerning Farrakhan. It was the first one that I did really researching his views, which now people are talking about the anti-Semitic aspects of Louis Farrakhan. But if you really think about it, if you watch his videos, look at his statements, his pronunciations about all sorts of ethnic groups and women and I guess gays as well, they don't really belong with the Women's March. It's just a fact. You can agree with either one. If you believe in a free country, either one you can agree with, whether it's intersectional feminism or the Nation of Islam. But both of them can't be reconciled. There's no overlap between them, as you can see from this clip over here.
You think that the original Mexicans are all white Mexicans. I don't have anything against a white Mexican, but you're not the original. What language did the original Mexicans speak? Why are you speaking Spanish? You're not Spain. You're not Spanish. Where did you get that name you have? Sanchez. Ramirez. Look at you. My name is Sergio Sanchez. I'm not one of those black ones. But Africans were in that part of the world maybe before you got there. Yeah.
This I added in.
Next thing you knew, and the next thing you knew, was a mixed race was coming up in the Muslim world. Light-skinned Arabs and black Arabs. Arab, Yes. The original language of the original people is Arabic. But there's a Semitic Jew and a Semitic Arab. And they have lived in the Holy Land. Now, listen to me, my Palestinian brother and friend. You've lived there no longer than 6,000 years. How long you been there, black man? Oh, well, our Savior taught us that from the time of the deportation of Moon, 66 trillion years ago, when that part that is now called Moon was a part of the earth, and a great explosion.
All right, so I think you guys get the picture. If you are a Women's March supporter and you believe that Farrakhan, you believe anything, Farrakhan, look, the way I relate to it is this. I don't care if somebody hates everybody, and I think Farrakhan competes with me. I'm just kidding, but he hates pretty much as many people as you can. He hates white people. He hates single mothers. He hates Mexicans. He hates also. I don't know if he hates Mexicans, but you can tell he says some crap that has absolutely no foundation under it. And I've actually talked to people that are followers of Farrakhan. They themselves can't explain what the hell he's talking about in some cases. You know, they say that, oh, they love his civic engagement and how he's helped people in the community. Look, you can help as many people as you want, but still spout a bunch of ridiculous crap that has absolutely no substance behind it. Okay, many people make fun of Christianity. They make fun of of Judaism. They all make fun of Islam, saying that there's no real scientific foundation behind them. But there is archaeological foundations behind, aspects of all three of those religions. What Farrakhan's talking about doesn't have any known trace archaeological foundation. So it's really ridiculous when I hear people say, well, he's so good because of his civic engagement and the way that he helps families and the underprivileged. There's a lot of good people who do that. Okay, and if Farrakhan does it, that's not what I'm objecting to. I'm objecting to his lies. I think he's a deceptive piece of crap. Okay, the idea that I have to oppose him because he hates people is why is that really the issue when he just says crap that is really so ridiculous that it's almost as if it's a parody of a religion. So recently, the whole Women's March coalition has begun to really unravel, just because there's so many people who are Farrakhan supporters in some of these communities. For example, in Indianapolis, there's Congressman Andre Carson. Now, in order to get elected there, in order to fend off a primary challenger, Andre Carson probably knows in his mind that he needs to get the support of Farrakhan. Does that make it right? No. But it's a rational reason. And rationalizing bad behavior is still rational. Okay? Certain bad behaviors can't be rationalized. Those people are insane. The Women's March leaders deny anti-Semitism claims as DNC, Harris, and Gillibrand abandoned the 2019 event. So there are more and more Democrats who are trying to present themselves as viable candidates in 2020. And for some of them, there will be the urge to pick a side in this Women's March versus, more mainstream Democrats. The Women's March aren't exactly on the progressive fringe, because in many cases they don't even support they'll support corporate Democrats all day. They don't care. But the really mainstream Democrats, the ones who are really towards the center, they don't want anything to do with the Women's March. So in many cases, there's kind of I guess there's a policy of appeasement where they have to work with each other in order to win elections, but in reality they hate each other. It's a coalition that can't hold. So some of these candidates like Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, Kamala Harris of California, they're going to ditch the Women's March because they probably would need a lot of funding from mainstream supporters, mainstream donors, in order to be viable. They don't have any grassroots appeal. That's the truth. And I don't want this to become just an issue of money, but at a certain point you have to address that. A lot of the donors who would contribute to these campaigns, they don't want to be associated with the Women's March because of its image. A lot of those people do happen to be, a lot of these big political donors do happen to be Jewish. I happen to be Jewish. I think that a lot, these people do want a stake in the Democratic Party, but they're part of the problem as to why the party has become disengaged from common voters. They're no longer representing people from working communities around the country. If you go to a city somewhere in the middle of Pennsylvania, they don't care about this intersectional feminism crap. They want to be able to have people who might work at a local plant. They want those people to keep their jobs, possibly add jobs, things like that. That's their main concern. So I don't see the Women's March or these mainstream politicians and their donors really addressing that. And that's what I was trying to say back in April. I actually went on April 10th, spoke to Tree of Logic on her show, and she's deleted the original stream because she was having issues at the time with, I believe, one of her channels had been banned or something, or temporarily removed. I don't remember what happened. And I had an argument with her for about 45 minutes. I said, this whole issue of the Women's March and anti-Semitism and statements about Mexicans and statements about Arabs, those things, those things that Farrakhan said will probably lead the march to fall apart. And she didn't believe me. She said these liberal women would never, ever turn against somebody who was, of one of the woke classes. But guess who turned out to be right? You have the DNC. The DNC, which is a pretty corrupt organization, but they don't want to have their image tarnished by being associated with the march, which even among the liberal media now has just a very negative image. So they're saying, well, we're just going to pull back and not support it. You have Kamala Harris and Kirsten Gillibrand leaving. You have some of these die-in-the-wool celebrity liberals, such as Alyssa Milano, who started the whole trend of renouncing the Women's March. So I think that my point of view has been validated, even though I think it could have gone even further, because the fact is that the stuff that he says isn't just derogatory towards Jews, it's derogatory towards people who are, all sorts of other groups. Single women, single mothers, Mexicans, as you saw earlier, even Palestinians. He said very derogatory things about gay people. Okay, those are issues that the Women's March tends to claim to care about. And when one of their leaders says that Farrakhan is the GOAT, people are like, well, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You can't represent two completely opposite ideas at the same time. Okay, so Mercy Morganfield, who headed the Women's March DC organization for 2 years before leaving in December, in part over conflicts with the national leadership, had a theory for the departure: self-preservation. I'm glad to see that they're saying this is not something we want to associate with. Not necessarily because they have some sort of moral ground, although I'm hoping they do, said Mrs. Morganfield, whose chapter folded when she left. I think people are starting to jump ship because they want to protect themselves. The Women's March leaders have been roiled by calls for their resignations over their associations with Nation of Islam Minister Louis Farrakhan, as well as recent reports about a 2017 organizer who says she was berated by two leaders and kicked out in part because she is Jewish. The four national co-chairs, Bob Bland, Tamika Mallory, Carmen Perez, and Linda Sarsour, have staunchly denied the allegations, but judging from the dramatic decline in support, the mounting criticism has taken its toll. They, supporters, don't want to go down with the ship when the ship goes down, Ms. Morganfield said. They don't want to be the people that waited too long before withdrawing their support. Not everyone has cut off the Women's March. Among the groups still backing the Women's March are heavy hitters such as Planned Parenthood, the American Federation of Teachers, and the ACLU. So the Planned Parenthood, by the way, I think might have even pulled out, if I'm not mistaken. I think that is old information. Let me see here. I believe I heard yesterday that Planned Parenthood is pulling out. So we'll see in a second. Three companies are also listed as sponsors. Johnny Walker. Why would Johnny Walker be sponsoring the Women's March? That's pretty disappointing. I always used to like Johnny Walker, but I haven't had it in a long time anyway. So I guess I don't care. Ben and Jerry's. I've never been a fan of Ben and Jerry's anyway. And Ecta Liba, which I have no clue what it is. So AFT President Randy Weingarten tweeted last month that while she and the leaders don't agree on everything, they are warriors for justice, and I am honored to know them and work with them and call them friends. Like the DNC, organizations that have pulled their support have by and large declined to criticize the Women's March, either ignoring requests for comment or issuing statements of support for women's rights in general. Let's see what it said here. Maybe they did stick with it. Good for them. Planned Parenthood, keeping their absent moral compass, completely clear. Their moral, or I guess their conscience clear. They're like, well, we're just going to continue to do things that are wrong all the time. Anyway, AFT President Randy Weingarten. This was a story I actually wrote about 2 weeks ago, I think, and we're going to keep following up on it. So the American Federation of Teachers apparently thinks that it's worth it for teacher union employees, teachers, public school teachers, to stand with a movement where a lot of the supporters apparently like a person like Louis Farrakhan that thinks the Earth is over 22 trillion years old. I don't remember what figure he threw out there. I'm actually pretty sleepy right now, so I have no time to remember what Farrakhan said. Like the DNC, organizations that have pulled their support have by and large declined to criticize the Women's March, either ignoring requests for comment or issuing statements of support for women's rights in general. People for the American Way, which partnered with the march in 2017 but not 2019, encouraged its members to show up. So they're saying, well, we're not going to actually take part officially in the march, but you should show up. People for the American Way is, by the way, they're the organization that I think runs Right Wing Watch. Okay, Right Wing Watch is that organization that harasses people like, Sargon of Akkad and Styx Hexenhammer. They're basically people who they're wet blankets that try to ruin independent media. And they continue. They say these events are an opportunity to stand together against all forms of bigotry, sexism, racism, anti-Semitism, xenophobia, and homophobia, said PFAW Vice President for Communications Drew Courtney in a statement. That's a particularly urgent priority at a time when the president and his allies appeal to hatred and division on a daily basis. But the fact is that they promote all of those problems at the same time as they claim to fight it. The DNC will not serve as a sponsor. and no DNC leaders will speak at Saturday's march. A Democratic source confirmed to the Washington Times after sending 2 prominent officials to address the 2018 Women's March, including DNC Chairman Tom Perez. Others jumping off the Women's March bandwagon include major progressive groups. This is stunning. Okay, like the Center for American Progress. It doesn't get more establishment than that. Emily's List, NARAL Pro-Choice America, the Human Rights Campaign, and the Southern Poverty Law Center. So a lot of these are major heavy hitter groups. So I don't know why Tree of Logic never saw the writing on the wall. This was bound to happen. Eventually people find out. The NAACP is no longer a partner, although NAACP Youth in Colleges, according to the Women's March website. That's very interesting. Not everyone who marches will be affiliated with the Women's March. Some sister march groups, including those in Denver and Los Angeles, have said they are no longer affiliated with the national group. So that's I'll try to put a link in the chat, but this is hilarious. There's still a group of liberal rabbis, quote unquote rabbis, that are supporting the march, but it's ridiculous. Okay, you have these people. Among them is Sharon Kleinbaum, who is the person who I told you, I think it was last week. She was one of these people. She's actually married to the woman who runs the American Federation of Teachers. So I think it's ridiculous. So that you have several of these reform rabbis. I think only one of them is a guy. 2 of them are guys, Mike Rothbaum and Joshua Stanton. This is so stupid. And I would suggest that people who are following this, they should write to these people, write to them civilly and say, how are you supposed to represent, people, congregations and spirituality and everything, when, you're also standing up for a guy who thinks that the world is 22 trillion years old, and that Mexicans are like a fake people. He's complaining about them speaking Spanish, and he said that I guess black people lived in Palestine before the Palestinians or something. It's just a joke, okay? These people are a joke. Anyone who's affiliated with the march is a joke. Yeah, and that's the way you should relate to it. It shouldn't be about getting pissed off and bent out of shape about it anymore. You have to relate to them as if they're idiots, because at a certain point you have to pick a set of values and stick with it. You can't, on the one hand, believe in somebody like Farrakhan who said that women who can't cook aren't worth shit or something. In fact, let me see if I can find the clip of it. That was my favorite one. Yeah, here we go. The movement of the Women's March, Black Lives Matter, all the movements that she's been a figurehead for.
The man to get into debt when you know debt is slavery, just so you could look good for a minute and suffer when you can't pay the bills? Who are you trying to please? Start small and grow large like everything else does. But if you want everything right away, you don't want to work for nothing, you don't want to sacrifice to build nothing, you will never have nothing, and you won't have a man, because a man can't be a man when he's saddled down up to his neck in debt with a dissatisfied woman who don't give a damn. She wants more and more and more. Let me tell you something, woman. We ought to take you and throttle you.
Holy shit.
I'm just telling you straight up. You don't want no man like me. You couldn't live with a man like me. Because I would not take that damn foolishness from one of you. For 1 minute I'd drive you through the door. I don't like no woman to dominate no man. And I don't like no woman who even tries. Then you see another side of me. This is the way I was trained as a Muslim. You can see it coming out of me now, right?
Uh-oh.
And I'm telling you, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad knew the black man and woman, and he knew how to train us better than any black man that ever lived. And unless we follow his guidance, we'll never be what we're supposed to be. You'll never be a happy woman dogging your man out. He's not a man yet, but he will be. But if you keep on dogging him, you won't have nothing, and you'll end up being a lesbian at home with yourself, with no man by your side.
You wouldn't want to be a lesbian, would you, Women's March? Listen to Minister Farrakhan.
Because your damn mouth is what it is. It's a snake pit.
Yes, so I find it very funny that these people want to kind of, they want to hedge they want to straddle the fence on something that's just you can either pick one. You can be a feminist or you can listen to this and support this. Okay, you can be either one. You can't be both. There's no reconciling the two. Okay, that's about it. Please like my video, subscribe to the channel. Once again, please do that. And make sure that you get the updates by clicking the bell. Also subscribe to me on Cocoscope as well as on BitChute, and all the other social media is behind me right here, as well as most of it is in the description below. And have a good night and a great weekend.